Hello.
Hey Andre, how's it going?
Hey Shannon. It's going pretty okay, I'd say. I think this week's gone by really slow at work. I think it's probably because it's the first day, it's the first week back at work. With regular hours, they gave us like short hours for a while for the holidays, and then coming into the new year for a couple of days, and now it's like full on back to normal, and so I'm having trouble readjusting. But other than that, I think my week's been fine. Hi everyone, welcome to Scary Talk, episode 52. How are you, Shannon?
That was a lot of old adult boring people stuff. You know what I mean? Like, cause I went through the same thing, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I hate it. It's just so like annoying to have to like take a break in the middle of the
Yeah,
week for New Year's because it was a Wednesday, and then go back to work. I was like, who said this was okay?
I know. It's a lot. It's a lot. But listen, we're adults now. It is what it is, Shannon. I know you don't want it,
Andre,
but it is what it
did
is.
you know this is the decade we turned 30?
This is the decade we turn
It's
30.
gross.
But like you also say that like that's like so surprising. Like, I mean, listen, the passage of time is what it is, and it is what it is. Like, oh well.
We're gonna die
Yes,
someday.
we'll turn 30. We're gonna die someday, so we'll make the best of it, even if we're old and ugly and 30. So, hi everyone. Today, Shannon and I are celebrating the 1 year anniversary of this podcast, alongside all of you. So, thank you for listening. To all of our two listeners, yay! Collab sound effects. No, but in reality, I think there's like 200 and something of you guys, like 200 and something unique repeat listeners. So, that is like in comparison to so many other podcasts, that sounds like so small, but to me that sounds so big because like literally I just do this in my bedroom, and so does Shannon. Like, it's just wild that people actually listen to us. So thank you for listening. Happy 1 year to us, and in celebration of the 1 year anniversary, we're bringing you Demons and Witches again. We're rehashing that shit episode.
Oh, it was so bad. It was
But we're
so
gonna do it
bad.
right this time.
I have no guarantees that we'll do it right this time, but it might be a little bit better.
I think it might be a little bit better at least. Yeah, I
Um,
think I'm not recommending you guys go back and listen to it. I mean, listen, you can, and a listen is a listen. So I won't reject it. But oh my god, that was not a good episode.
well, okay, so I want to go back to our subscribers for a moment. If we have like 200 listeners who listen to every single episode, like we have enough people to start our own cult, and I think that's awesome. You know, like not all cults get that many
I,
people.
I think we should pull the call to action out there in the universe, just like speak it into existence and say, hey, if any of you 200 want to join our cult, we're starting it up. There's a sign up sheet going around. Like, we should do something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. We'll have candy at all the meetings.
Candy, and by candy we mean not candy. Now, to get into the topic, Shannon, I believe today you are stealing my spotlight and covering demons. Is that
I
correct?
am, and that was my idea because you were trying to do the same thing again, and I was like, bitch, no one wants a sequel where everything's exactly the same. No one wants a sequel to begin with, but we give the people what they
Tell
don't want.
that to literally, tell that to literally every franchise ever, because they will beg to disagree. But regardless,
That's true.
you go right ahead. I'm actually excited to see what you've got. So
Well, I've got everything. I've got a fucking cornucopia of demons crawling out of my ass at any given time, and I think that's pretty clear.
when do you not?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an inconvenience in my life, but for the most part, you don't really notice it. Except when I'm sitting, which is fine. Um, so I kind of want to just talk generally about like, the history of demons, because like last time we had talked about exorcism, and that didn't really go very well because we kind of reached the conclusion that exorcism is not paranormal. It's just not.
Yeah.
I guess whatever you would want to call that. But so let's just talk about demons. Let's just get grisly. Let's put our fingers in some gooey demon juice and let's stir it up. Let's get this happening.
What the fuck? All right, I'm all in. I'm literally all in.
Okay, so demonology is the study of demons or beliefs about demons. So largely this is going to be like a big demonology sandwich. So this is from the Wikipedia page. They can be human, non-human, separate souls, or discarnate spirits, which have never inhabited a body. There's two classes of, this idea that they could be inhabiting or disinhabiting. Melanesians and several African groups have drawn that distinction like originally. And yeah, so we've got a whole flurry of like cultures that are having their own like versions of demons and kind of coming up with their own ideas, and so you see it everywhere, literally everywhere. So we're going to talk about everywhere. So, there's the very broad idea of your life is governed by spirits. We've seen this with, it's governed by a god of water or something, but apparently that can also be with demons. So the Inuit apparently believe in spirits of the sea, earth, and sky, everything in nature. Korean belief posits that countless demons inhabit the natural world and that they can fill household objects and are present in all locations. Some accompany travelers seeking them out, from nature and from these objects. So, these souls, these demons, whatever you want to refer to them, they, in theory, inhabit another world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a part of ours. They can be corporeal, and one of those ways that we see that is, vampires, or, which I don't know if we could classify as a demon. Possession would be one.
I wouldn't. Would you?
I don't know, because that opens up a whole nother can of worms. Like, is everything inherently...
I mean, like, first of all, I don't even believe in vampires.
Yeah.
And but if I did, I wouldn't do that. Like, I would just think they are what the lore says they are, which is just like undead humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe in demons. And so yeah. I mean, yeah.
So are you more likely to say it's like more of like a soul? It's like it doesn't have a body?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally. Yeah.
Well, on the topic of corporeal, the Malay Peninsula, there is apparently something called the Spectre Huntsman, which is a demon. It is a man searching, I guess you'd call him a ghost, but he's searching for this demon. It's a buck slash mouse deer that is pregnant with male offspring, but it seems to also be a living man. And it I guess this ghost is like seeking it out of revenge or something, and that's really gross and weird, and I found that really interesting. That's going to be like a big statement in this discussion, is that's really weird and also interesting. Incubi
Yeah.
incubi and succubi of the Middle Ages, those are regarded as demons. The succubus, it gives you bad dreams, feeds off, your soul or whatever. There's something called the Zoroastrian faith. They actually have like an entire like book on demons, and they say that there are 3,333 demons, which are responsible for war, starvation, sickness. Yeah, so that's something.
Yeah.
So just to list off a couple of more things, there's jinn. Jinn are typically what you would think of as, what would you call it? Or, I mean, I don't want to like immediately jump to Aladdin, but my brain is like, let's talk about Aladdin. So the genie.
Let's do it.
The genie is basically a jinn. So this German dude, Almut Wieland Karimi, he classifies 10 types of jinn, and these are all demons. So the jinn are an invisible being, a demon. It doesn't matter whether it has evil intentions or not. The shaitan is a malevolent genie who causes illness and madness. And Ifrit, it is very powerful and cunning and strong and generally bad. Marid is a haughty and powerful shaitan. So it's a demon that causes illness and madness, while also being, I guess it's the love child of an Ifrit and a shaitan. So very, very evil, very, very strong. A boo-boo, literally, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that. A boo-boo is a jinn that specifically frightens children.
Fear the boo boo. Alrighty.
Fear
Okay.
the boo-boo. We all know it. We just won't face it.
Oh my god, that's totally a shirt, dude. Just say that like 10 more times so it becomes like a thing, and then I'll make a Fear the Boo Boo shirt.
Fear the boo-boo, let Zozo in your ass. So Sila is a female demon who seduces men. I don't know why. Like, it's really not that hard to seduce a man. Like, literally just exist and like, there. Now you're just evil, apparently.
Wow, that is both very cocky but also kind of confident. So I kind of like it. So it's like, ooh, okay, like confident Shannon. Wow.
Well, you have to admit, like, it can't be that difficult. So, an Amir is a demon spirit that dwells inside of a house. A ghoul, not to be confused with ghoul, as in Ghoul, is generally evil and it lives in the desert. Oh, this one's fucked up. A Karina. This is a demon that strangles children. I don't know why he and Boo Boo don't just join forces, but they don't. Hatif is a mysterious demon who is only heard but never seen. I found that one to be that whole list just to be pretty wild. That, like, there's all these different types of demons in, like, this folklore. And they're all so specific. Like, who thought to themselves, like, I want one demon in the desert, but also I want one that just strangles children. Only, yeah, okay. That's fine. Okay, so now I want to draw from this book called Demonology and Devil Lore by Moncure Daniel Conway, written in 1879. He has a degree at Harvard Divinity College, which I didn't know if you knew that Harvard has a divinity college, but I actually had a lot of professors who went there.
I did not. I am very surprised. I didn't know that was like a legitimate field of study.
Right. Well, people really like religious studies, even if they're not religious.
That's different though. Like I mean, like theology is definitely a field of study, but like divinity is different. I feel like. It's. I mean, I guess it's the same, but from a different perspective. Like theology is usually very academic, and people who study divinity aren't they people who are trying to like become pastors or something like that?
Oh, no, not necessarily. I mean, why study anything, you know? They're just passionate about it, or, you know, they think there needs to be more research on it. I guess you could be a pastor. Okay, so I would like to go into this book, and first I'm going to touch on the chapter about hunger demons. So I'm just going to give, you know, some information on some of those. So, in India, there are natives that do blood sacrifices to bring forth these types of demons, and they're depicted as having pot bellies, which I guess lends to the hunger. And they are described as being girtily round, and they are the brood of Kali, and Kali is like this like god of India, and round with human skulls. So basically I could be misunderstanding this, but the demons eat the human skull. That's what I got from this. So that was an interesting one. I mean, they are hunger demons, so. Okay. Let me find some more. It's like such a dense book, and it's an ebook too, so it's all online. Okay, so there are demons of fire, so we're talking about heat. So Asmodeus, Moloch, Tophet. So fire is the element of fiends. So it has that devouring element. So when you sacrifice someone to a demon, the fire consumes them. So it's kind of like this metaphor for the demon is taking them. Okay, so one of the ways they would, do this and kind of honor the demon gods, I guess you would call them, the fire demons, is in India they would have fire festivals. So there is a popular annual festival to honor something called Dharma Raja, and it's called the Feast of Fire. The devotees walk barefoot over a glowing fire. This extends for 40 feet, and it lasts 18 days, during which time those that vow to keep it must fast, so no food, abstain from women, lie on the bare ground, and walk on the brisk fire. And on the 18th day, they assemble, and their heads are crowned with flowers, and they kind of walk in a procession over the fire, and then they come to like the main fire, and they take the ashes, rub it on their foreheads, and they, I guess, when the gods, this is what it says, when the gods have been carried 3 times round it, they walk over a hot fire. Some carry their children in their arms, others lances, sabers. After the ceremony, the people press to collect the ashes to rub their foreheads with and obtain from devotees the flowers from which they were adorned and which they carefully preserve. And this is just kind of one way to honor the fire demons. And that's just some interesting historical crap for you. I just don't like the idea of walking on fire and then rubbing the hot ashes all over myself.
Yeah, me neither.
While holding your baby. But culture is beautiful. Everyone's different. Let's see what else. Okay, so there is something called the Hydra. So there's kind of like this image depicting like Hercules of slaying the Hydra. And I think they actually put some of the Disney movie. So it's this beast, this like snake-like beast with like multiple heads. And like the heads are all like snakes or like lizards. And so that's kind of demon. And people actually believe that this creature is in California in something called the Devil's Tea Kettle, which sounds absolutely great.
I've never heard of that. That sounds interesting, though. I mean, a local demon?
Yeah.
I'm sure you wouldn't mind visiting. That sounds... I've never heard of this before. And also I've never heard of the Hydra, like, as in the mythological creature, the Hydra being referred to as a demon. These are not the kind of demons that I was expecting. Like...
Well, that's the thing. It's like people
your
have
Indian
such...
demon and your Hydra, like...
Yeah, they have such different opinions of what they are. There was one that was really weird that I wanted to talk about. It was literally just like a one-liner. It was like, that's not normal. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, this is it. This is it. So there's a type of demon.
Okay.
It's a hunger demon. This hunger demon can only eat dairy and is said to eat 9 buckets of cow's milk a day.
Wow.
And I thought...
He needs some milk.
I thought it was hilarious because we both can't have lactose. He's called the Lambton worm.
Me and that demon would not vibe well, obviously.
Oh, no.
Yeah, both of us and that demon would not vibe well.
Absolutely not. He is in the Scottish Highlands, and he's called the Lambton worm. So that's a demon that exists if you ever want to go to Scotland and visit him. I don't see why you want it.
Yeah, I'm dying to go now.
So darkness demons, this is kind of like your typical shadow people, which I think we've already decided aren't demons.
Yeah, I don't think they are, at least, but
Yeah.
I can see why some people would think that. I don't think... I get it.
So shadows, night deities, kobolds, the Walpurgisnacht, German obviously, the moonshine vampire. There's so many different concepts of like dark demons that exist on darkness. So yeah, they're just shadows, true evil. I think actually, I don't know. Let's see. I want to find a really good example. Okay, so in the year of 1743, all of north of England and Scotland, they were freaking out because some specters were seen on the mountain of Souterfell. The mountain is about a half a mile high, so it's not excruciatingly high.
Wow.
So on a summer evening, a farmer and his servant were looking about a half mile off and saw the figures of a man and a dog pursuing some horses along the mountainside, which is very steep. And on the following morning, they repaired it, expecting to find dead bodies, but found none. So about a year later, a troop of horsemen were seen riding along the same mountain, side by side, by one of the same persons. And then these people, they called others who also saw them. And then after about a year had passed, the vision was like said to be fake, and that the event occurred on the eve of a rebellion where horsemen were exercising, and so it was just them having anxiety about it. But I guess it was so steep that they were like, there's no way you could be running like with a dog and horsemen like on this side of a steep mountain. So that's why they were like, this is shadow people, like this isn't real, or it's a mirage, or demons or ghosts. So that's kind of weird, but not inherently evil. It doesn't seem like anything bad happened, so I guess that's just another reason I don't buy into shadow people being inherently evil.
Yeah, me neither. I think when we talked about it, I guess, at least my understanding was shadow. Well, I mean, what I chose to believe at the end of that episode was I think shadow people are beings from another dimension that can sometimes manifest in this dimension either willingly or they're not manifesting at all, and we're just seeing their shadow because there's like a glitch in the matrix. Like and so we're seeing only their shadow though in our dimension.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's anything beyond any of those two theories, because like they don't seem to actually attack people or present themselves as bad omens or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if it is an omen or if it's just a glitch, because I feel like glitch makes more sense, and I'm not sure. Because I guess in theory, if you think an omen,
I just think it's a glitch. Go ahead.
I don't know. If you think an omen is like actually foretelling the future, then you have to come to terms with the fact that you believe that the future is kind of already decided. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I guess you also have to subscribe to it. It's complicated, right? Like, let's say that they are bad omens and they can predict the future. Whether or not you believe that, if they indeed do that, that doesn't matter. They're still a bad omen and they're still gonna predict the future, and you're still fucked, whether or not you want to believe it.
Yeah.
So that's a different question. But I do understand what you're trying to say, as in like, you know what? Like, if you have to subscribe to the belief that like the future is already predetermined in order to say that you think that shadow people are bad omens. But I bet you there's people out there that, well, obviously don't believe in shadow people at all. Much less do they believe that they're bad omens.
Yeah.
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 But interesting.
So the last one I want to talk about is disease. So demons of disease. A couple in folklore, the plague phantom. Sounds like a bad Goosebumps title.
Yeah.
Saturn is actually listed here as a diseased demon. I don't know what that means.
Of course.
The Fatal Seven, the Sinhalese Praetria, cattle demon in Russia, which I don't know if I'll be talking about that. You can look it up. So I want to talk about Riri first. So Riri is the demon of blood disease. So his form is that of a man with a face of a monkey. He is fiery red, rides on a red bull, and all the hemorrhages and diseases of blood are attributed to him. So if you find that there's some blood coming out of the toilet, it's Riri, because it's coming from your rear. Oh, bad jokes.
God.
So apparently Riri can take on 18 different forms. So, I mean, it could be the man with the face of a monkey, but it could be something else. So sometimes he's seen as a demon of death. Sometimes he's seen as like a pygmy, I guess, like a bird, which is pretty small. On Sometimes he he bears a cock in one hand, which I think they're saying a chicken, a club in the other, and in his mouth a corpse, which just sounds just great. Um, so there's another disease demon called Maha Sohan. It is called the Great Graveyard Demon. He resides on a hill where he is supposed to surround himself with carcasses. He is 122 feet high, has 4 hands, 3 eyes, and red skin. He is the head of a bear.
I just think, like, one, these demons are being talked about as if they're very corporeal beings, clearly.
Yeah.
And also, two, like, the fact that someone was able to describe them so specifically is kind of a lot. Like, he has 4 fingers on each hand, 3 eyes. He's 6 foot tall. He likes long walks on the beach, and his nickname is Jimmy.
Would you swipe
I don't know about that. I mean, I've swiped right on worse.
I just feel like it's so much more creative than just thinking about, like, oh, it's just this little spirit that I can't see that possesses me and makes me do bad things. It's like, this guy, like, he has the head of a bear and 4 hands, and he is the reason all the people you love are dead. Like, that's frightening to me. Can you imagine that standing at the foot of your bed? I don't like that. But yeah. I guess I'm just more afraid of what I can, like, see and feel. So if that's walking towards me, I'm gonna run. So I want to talk about this is one of the greatest demon of diseases in Ceylon. It's called Maha Kolasani Yakseya. So his father...
Say that 10 times.
I know, right? His father ordered his queen to be put in death in the belief that she had been faithless to him. Her body was cut in 2 pieces, one of which was to be hung upon a tree, the other to be thrown at the foot of the dogs. So the queen said, basically, fuck you, man, like, this was not me, like, this is, like, no, this is not correct, and this child that I just had is a demon. So she gave birth to this demon before he killed her, obviously. And the child apparently completely devoured his mother. And then he repaired the graveyard where for a time he grew fat eating the corpses. And he inflicted a mortal disease.
Well, that's not very nice.
He inflicted mortal disease upon the city and had nearly depopulated it when a couple of gods decided to intervene. And that story's fucked up. That story is scary. And, you know, it just goes to show we live in a rich and colorful world. And that's all I got for you, Andre. A rich and colorful world.
Wow. Well, that was a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process. It's just a lot to, like, I don't know, to kind of decipher. I just like, I'm trying my best to, like, put myself in the shoes of these different cultures and, like, different understandings of demons, but to me, like, what I call a demon is such a specific thing. It's like such a, like, particular entity that it's weird to hear about, like, the Hydra and the bear demon and, like, the demon with 4 eyes and, like, the demon of the, like, we get it. Like, but I mean, I guess, like, the word demon itself can have many different meanings and connotations. Like, it could just be,
you have, like, a very Western point of view on what a demon should be.
It could just be a semantics kind of thing. Like, I think I like, maybe the word demon in other places is used more vaguely, therefore these things are falling under that word. That's what I'm trying to say. But maybe they have a specific word for what we would consider a demon, let's say, in the generally, like, Christian Western zeitgeist mentality, which is like this fucking thing that is pure evil and comes to wreak havoc and possess you if it can. So, and that is obviously connected to, like, Christian religion exclusively. Like that. I mean, obviously, if we're talking about different cultures, it wouldn't be connected to Christian religion. But I would still hope for. I was still hoping to hear about, like entities that are just pure evil. Well, I guess the bear one is pretty evil, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It
the
was
reason
interesting
I
to hear
didn't
about
talk about
like
that,
everything.
I didn't want to read the Bible.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I didn't.
No, that's fair. But I don't know. All very interesting. Good stuff, Shannon. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about witches, y'all. Hi. So this is incredible. I was doing research for this episode, and I'm not just gonna talk about witches in the general sense. I'm gonna talk about Mexican witches because apparently there's such a niche that this is its own topic tonight. So everyone get ready. I found 3 different stories from 3 different people on Reddit. I was looking for like witch stories because I like me a good narrative, and I feel like everything that can be explained as far as background of witches probably was explained in that first episode, as bad as it was. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with a lot of background. I want to read some good spooky stories to just kind of get us in that witchy mood. Happy Halloween, and that's what I'm gonna do. But when I was looking up stories, I saw that most of it I was finding were like from Mexico. I don't know why, but that's what I found, and it was really weird. And so tonight I'm talking about Mexican witches. Story numero uno. My family from my dad's side have many stories of witches. Any family member from my dad's side always has a paranormal story, usually about witches. I don't know if this will sound real to you, but my family has always told these stories. My uncles, dad, and grandpa all have a story related to witches, and some of my aunts as well as grandma do as well. So I believe them, and I'm just here to share their stories. My dad's family comes from a small ranch in Mexico. The ranch is in Zacatecas. The ranch is really small. So small that basically all my family lives there. Usually, if you live in that ranch, you're related to someone. There's probably only 4 or 5 families that are not related to us. The ranch is small and it's very dry. It has dirt roads and so on. Once my uncles were getting ready for a party. Also, I should say now, like, these stories are scary, but they're also kind of funny, and I just like, I love that combination. So even I'm happy with my choice. Anyway, this person says that her uncles were getting ready for a party, and they were young at the time, maybe early 20s. The party they were going to was in another ranch, so it was a little far away. My uncles, being party people, they would take their horses and go to the party, because that's what you do. You take your horsey and you go party. Sometimes they would come back very late. Actually, that was usually the case. So they got ready this night and started heading to the party. It was very dark, but they didn't care. They got to the party, and one of my uncles, Steve, saw these 2 girls away in the corner. He saw them and said that they were very beautiful. They had light-colored hair and light skin. Being in a ranch in Mexico, this was really rare, seeing a girl like this. Steve then elbowed my other uncle, Andrew. They then walked up to the 2 girls and started dancing. After a few dances, they headed home. They said goodbye to the girls and took off in their horses. They were riding these horses for about 30 minutes when they saw the same 2 blonde girls walking down the dirt road. They stopped and got off their horses and walked towards the girls, seeing they might have wanted a ride home. My uncle then heard one laugh, and in front of his eyes they had disappeared into the darkness. They both got back on their horses and continued on. They later came across a laughing sound. My uncle, Steve, got off his horse and asked who was there. Yeah, it seems stupid now, but my uncle really didn't care about getting hurt. I love that caveat. Steve then saw 2 birds. He said it was a really big bird, as dark as the night sky, and the 2 birds were laughing at him. Andrew got off his horse and walked towards Steve at this point. Both of them looked at the laughing birds confused. Then one of them speaks. "We enjoy dancing with you, boys." So the bird spoke.
Oh my god, I love
my
it.
uncle really didn't enjoy the fact that he had danced with a witch. So he took out his gun and started shooting at the birds.
No, don't do that.
He always carried a gun with him. The birds just flew around and laughed at him some more. My uncle then started swearing at the birds. They didn't appreciate it, so one flew down and clawed at my uncle's face. He only got a little scratch, so he didn't care. The birds flew off, thanking
He
Steve for the
shot at
dance.
it.
I know, saying his name. My uncle never gave any of the girls his name. They just grabbed their horses and went back home. That never stopped my uncles from going to parties, though. That's the end
Oh
of my
my god,
uncle's
of course
story.
not.
It's a true story that happened to them. I love this. I have more from my family. I hope to post here as well. Might post pictures of the ranch as well if you're interested in that part of Mexico. Thanks. Oh my god. This narration is gold. Um, like this writing is great.
I love it.
And you can tell it's real too, because like she like barely takes it seriously, but she's convinced that it's a real story from her uncles. Listen, it very well could be. Like we've heard of witches doing stranger things and turning into fucking ravens, so why not?
Well, that's one of the things witches can do is turn into an animal, supposedly.
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating. I also find it interesting that the uncles' names are Steve and Andrew. Like what?
I
don't-
know,
I
I
don't
know. I
understand.
wonder if she like translated the names maybe, because that doesn't sound right. But I don't know. I thought it was funny, but like jokes aside, if I was there, I probably would be very scared. Like hearing a bird talk, like no fucking way, and also it knew their name, even though he never given the birds the girls their name. So that's a lot. Huh. Anyway.
Well, they
Okay.
could have been drunk, you know. I don't know. I'm not completely dismissing it.
I mean,
but-
I guess, but that only means that. Oh, you mean they could have been drunk so they imagined the birds talking, or they could have been drunk so maybe they accidentally
Yeah.
gave their names away. I mean, I
Either
guess it's
one. I don't know.
possible that they just imagined the birds talking, but I want to believe that they didn't, just for the sake of the story and the topic. And we'll just say that witches can turn into ravens and laugh at your face. So, next story. This one's also from Mexico. Different person, though. So this person says, this story has to do with my grandparents. My family is from a very small town in central Mexico, about 1.5 hours from Mexico City. It's on a hill that faces a huge mountain and a huge valley all around it. Back when my grandparents were young, there was hardly any lighting outside and the streets were not paved. Very rural. I don't remember how old my grandpa was, but at the time he was a shepherd and had to wake up super early in the mornings while it was still dark to walk to work. One day, at dawn, as he's walking in a field, he felt and heard something fly over him. He looked up and saw that the thing that flew over him landed on a tree nearby. He knew right away that it was a witch because of how she looked and acted. He described her as very ugly. I mean, I would know it was a witch because it fucking flew over me, but okay. He described her as very ugly, with jet black hair that was all tangled and dirty and had a bright red flashing light in her chest. That's new. I have not heard that. She was holding onto the branches and was just watching him, and he was looking back at her. He worked up the nerve to start walking towards her, and he started shouting and cussing at her to leave him alone. The closer he got, the more he was shouting and cussing. Finally, the witch got pissed off, growled, and launched herself off of the tree and flew off. He said, "Screw this," and walked back home. The second, okay. The second part of this post is after one of my aunts was born. So this is this story has like generations. Okay, there's a lot happening. It's very similar to the. Okay, so just follow. So my grandparents are in their room sleeping. Back then, I guess it was normal for couples to sleep in separate beds in the same room, and that's how they were, with my baby aunt sleeping in the room directly connected to my grandparents. Okay, so I don't know if I made you guys confused, but basically this girl is telling two different stories from her family. One to the uncle, one happened to the grandparents, and they happened at different points in time, but she either theorizes that it was like the same witch or the same group of witches like haunting them, and her whole family just has like, I don't know, like witches on them or something. Anyway, so she says that her grandparents were sleeping, and so was her aunt, who was a baby at the time. So this story is old. It was the middle of the night when my grandpa was woken up by a very loud thud that came from above him, and then right away my aunt started crying. My grandpa started to call out to my grandma to go and check on the baby, but my grandma wasn't waking up. He finally started screaming for her to wake up and ran to her bed, and she finally got up and immediately ran to my aunt. She found my aunt naked and inside of a drawer in one of her dressers. My grandpa was in the other room screaming and cussing when they heard footsteps running above them, and then nothing. It had left. My aunt stopped crying after a while and was unheard, just like my sister. Except my sister was still in her diaper, and my aunt was actually nude and found in a drawer. I don't know if my grandma did anything like my mom did to scare and keep the witch away, but I'm guessing she did because my aunt is very much alive and healthy. The reason why my grandpa wasn't the one who ran into the room to get my aunt was because he's always been a scaredy cat. Okay. If he ever heard anything weird, he'd send my grandma to go check it out. That's why when he heard the witch land on the roof, he knew it was a witch and didn't want to go in himself and instead stayed in his room cussing at her. Nowadays, he doesn't like to talk about this paranormal experience and even says that it didn't happen. But it did, and a lot of scary things have happened to him. My mom and I think maybe it's because he is cursed. He never had a drug
Oh
or
my
alcohol
God.
addiction. He had a woman addiction, and we believe he did one or maybe even many women wrong, and it came back to haunt him. Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe he messed with the wrong woman once, and she happened to be a witch, and oopsie daisy. And then the person says, "Oh, like this the writing style is so like." This person says, "Oh, I have one more short thing about the witches. I guess when there were parties in town, sometimes they could see the witches quote unquote dancing in the mountain in front of the town. The music would be on, and in the dark mountain at night, they could see red lights bouncing around, and when the music stopped, so did the lights. They started the music again, and the lights started bouncing around again. It didn't happen often, but on occasions, it did." That actually is really creepy if you think about it. Then this person says, "I went to visit my mom last year with my husband and twin daughters, and we stayed in the very same house where the witch tried to get my aunt. I have other stories about my mom's haunted house that I posted under quote unquote scary stuff in Mexico and quote unquote more scary stuff in Mexico. If anyone is interested, thanks for reading till the end."
Oh my God.
This, I mean, listen. Thoughts?
I kind of like it. I like the narrative of it's happening to this family over the years. I also like that it's vague. Like, you kind of know, like, it's probably witches, but is it the same witch? Is it just these people have really bad luck? Is it a curse?
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
don't
think
know,
that.
and yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, is it more than one witch? Is it like a curse? And if so, why? Like, why are these witches coming for them? Is this just a Mexico thing? What's happening? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I think that theory that the person posits is very interesting. Is like, it's the uncle's fault. He was a womanizer, and at some point he did like the wrong girl wrong, and now he's cursed, and this is kind of like spread
Yeah.
to the rest of the family, and that really sucks. But like, I really like the little bit of the bouncing red lights. First of all, never heard of a witch having an Iron Man style fucking red light in the middle of her chest, but let's say that they do, and that's a signifier. To see that, like, let's say during parties, like right off in the mountain, you just see like bouncing red lights, and kind of knowing that, oh shit, like the witches are probably like vibing to my music right now. Like that's kind of creepy, and like
Oh my
I don't know.
God.
I don't know. I don't like it.
I
Anyway.
like that. Yeah. I like it because it reminded me of the Flatwoods monster.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
kind of how she's like in the trees and she has like that reflective torso or whatever, but I don't. And then the glowing red eyes.
Uh huh.
So I don't know if that's the same. Maybe, I don't know. Could be.
I mean, what's something else that you think this could be? Well, I mean, I guess nothing else. Like the first one for sure was witches, because like the birds, that makes total sense. The second one, I guess it
Yeah.
could be something else. Like the first part of the second story, when the guy sees something flying over him, and then this like witch like latches onto branches of a tree and just like shouts at the man, like that's also definitely a witch, just like the whole first story. But the second part of the second story, where like the aunt that when she was a baby is like found in a drawer naked, and like all this kind of shit, like that could be something else. That could be like a cryptid, or it could be like a, I don't know. But it all sounds connected.
Well,
So
like the like scorned woman thing, like that could be like a demon or it could even be like a zombie. Like maybe the woman was like, maybe he like killed her or something. She came back from the grave to seek her revenge, like a ghoul, something like that. I don't know.
this reminded me of something really random. I've heard, well, I know of stories of demons trying to take babies, which actually contradicts what I said about demons not being corporeal beings, because they would have to be to literally grab a baby away. Um, I'll look into that just out of curiosity for myself, and I'll like let you know what I find because I remember that just now when we were talking about that. Anyway, okay. So I have one last story. This one's shorter, also from a different person, incredibly, because they all sound very similar, and the narration also very similar. Mexican girls just have a very specific style of writing. I mean, I like it. This is fun. Okay, so this person says, my grandpa told me this story over the weekend when they came up to visit my family. He's from a small town in Mexico where almost everybody owns acres of land where they grow wheat, barley, and corn. Well, the lands are located on the lower part of town. Since the town is located in a hill, you have the top part of town. Oh, okay, this is weirdly written. Then the middle, and then the downside, it's mainly a dirt road with oak trees and mesquite trees, usually covering the acres. Anyways, my grandpa and his uncle had to go down to water the crops. They used water that comes down from the river to water the crops. And if they wanted to get the good water, they had to go at midnight. Okay. So my grandpa headed down with a flashlight and machete on hand, walking down the dirt road, and he said that he was meeting his uncle down there. Once he got there, his uncle wasn't there yet, so he lied down on the grass, waiting for his uncle in the water, looking up to the sky and the huge oak trees, when he said that he heard something, and while looking up, he saw a shadow darker than the night. It stood out, he said, and that it was flying from one tree to the other, and every time he wanted to flash it, the flashlight wouldn't turn on. He said it flew by like 4 times when he heard steps, and got up really quick, and it was his uncle. The uncle asked him if the water had come down yet, to which my grandpa replied no. Then he asked him if he had been seeing or hearing anything weird, and my grandpa told him what had just happened. That's when his uncle told him that when he was walking down the road, he saw a dark figure. He just stared at it, and then the figure got bigger, and it took off, flying down towards my grandpa. Oh, okay. This person put a period there, and then it took off, flying towards my grandpa, towards where the grandpa was. They believed it was a witch in the form of a lechuza, which is an owl, since several people from that town have seen it before. Probably not that scary, but it was creepy indeed. Gave me goosebumps as he was telling it. Thank you for reading. Anyway, okay, wait. Couldn't have it just been an owl? I mean, I guess it would have had to be a really big owl, because they said it was really big, but I mean, okay. It just, I mean, so it wasn't that dark, and they were able to see it. It was an owl. I mean, I guess they weren't able to see it, but they had heard stories about a witch flying around like an owl, and so they assumed it was the same witch, even though they couldn't actually see it. But, I mean, I don't know about this one.
I think that's interesting because the Flatwoods monster is said to be an owl or whatever. So what if both the skeptics and the non-skeptics are correct? What if it's just a witch who can transform into an owl and she's just spooking people in West Virginia?
I guess that's possible. Wow, like my understanding of witches is just like growing. I feel like I also wanted to talk about like Wiccans, but like I'm not gonna get into that because it's like a whole thing. But I was just gonna say, like, weren't witches supposed to just like do spells and like play with frogs and shit and like eat kids? Like, why are they like spooking people around for no reason? I mean, they're not gonna kill them, obviously. They're just yelling at them, and they're like going out dancing. They
Maybe
laugh at them in the form of birds.
Maybe it's not for no reason. Maybe they just are like doing their spooky stuff and people just happen to run into them, or they're just like, they're inherently evil, so they like to do evil stuff, I don't know.
I mean,
Because in theory, like, witches sold their soul to the devil, so they don't have a soul. So there's no real desire for them to just start a book club and like do like chill stuff. Like, they want to go out and they want to scare some guys off their horses because why are you riding a horse, Steve? Why are you doing that?
Okay. Okay, well, something I wanted to ask you was, do you think that there are... Oh my god. Okay, first, can you clarify for the audience, and I guess myself, your stance on the like existence and like veracity of witches?
The what type of witches?
I mean, on whether you believe that witches actually exist, and to what extent. Like, do you think they're actually out here like turning into birds, or do you think it's more like women who can do spells? Oh, and then I suppose.
I don't think they exist, but my thing I want to subscribe to is they're just women who are tired of putting up with men's shit. And so they just snapped. And you know what? That's okay. Everyone snaps sometimes.
Okay, but that doesn't explain like are you saying they're just regular women so they just snap so they just killed someone in a very mortal way, or do you think they were actually able to conjure up something dark and magical in order to
Maybe
take
they
revenge?
can. Maybe magic is real. I don't
Maybe,
know.
I guess.
I don't know. I don't know if I can decide on like a supernatural ability that they have. Maybe their power is just, like illusion. Like maybe they can convince you that what you're seeing is a bird when it's really not, or that this isn't real, because that would encapsulate a lot of things.
I guess.
And
Yeah.
that could be like
Um,
a witch's potion, like a hallucinogen. I don't know.
I mean, I know I think I believe in witches. I'm trying to figure out for myself to what extent I actually believe in them. Like, do I believe just like Wiccans, like spells and shit, or
Don't
they
come
can
for the
transform.
Wiccans.
Like I know. I'm not trying. I'm just like when I say Wiccans, I'm trying to say like spells and magic and stuff like that. And it's probably not entirely synonymous, so Wiccans don't come for me. Sorry for misusing the Wiccan name, but that's what I'm trying to say. But I do believe. I'll say this here. I'll say this. I think I, at the very least, believe that if you give me a fucking magical book and you say, and it has 100 spells in them, and you say, what are those books called? A grimoire, right? Like a medieval book with spells, and there's 100 spells in that fucking book, and you tell me, Andre, do all 100 of these. It's just the fucking fun book. I'll be scared because I'll be thinking, damn, at least one of these 100 has to work. Ergo, I do believe that. I guess I'm saying I believe in magic. That sounds kind of wild, but
Ooh.
that's the thing that like I don't think all 100 of them would work. I think that maybe a couple would, because they would really be calling to something really dark and sinister out there, and the spell would be drawing its power from that, and then, oh shit, like I just spoke something into existence that I didn't want. Like, I don't know. Maybe some spells are real. That's what I'm trying to say. And so I wouldn't fuck with them. That's the real lesson here. Kids, don't fuck with
Andre
spells.
is wearing full Harry Potter garb right now. Andre, what house are you? Are you a Hufflepuff? You feel like a Hufflepuff.
No, I
I'm a
took
Slytherin.
the test. I took the test. I'm a Gryffindor, and I'm not like all high and mighty about it because I don't think that Gryffindor is like this shit. I know everyone wants to be in that house, but I think all houses have their good stuff. I mean, I don't love Slytherin, but I think all houses have their good stuff. So I'll be any house gladly, but I am a Gryffindor via test, so that's what that is. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about, this is kind of totally unrelated, but still about witches technically, is the Blair Witch Project. So the Blair Witch Project, amazing movie. It had that shit fuck sequel in like a year later. Terrible. It's now basically considered like non-canon. That's how bad it was. And it was just a cash grab. Anyway, 16 years later, they came out with the true quote-unquote sequel that disregards the second movie and only takes like as canon the first Blair Witch from 1999, the original. And the movie was whatever. Okay, that's not the point. The point is that I was reading about it. I didn't watch the 2016 movie because I didn't care. But I've seen the original movie. That's the only one I've seen. But I was reading about the 2016 movie more in depth. I heard about it when it came out, but I didn't know much about it. And then reading about the plot some more today, I found some really interesting shit. I read the plot and I didn't understand some parts. And I was like, what the fuck? So I started researching. And basically, Shannon, have you seen the Blair Witch Project?
I have. I think it sucks.
Okay, fuck you, but we'll get into that in a minute. Real quick, all I wanted to say was that, okay, so you've seen it, at least you know what it's about. Okay, the point is that for those of you who haven't seen it, I mean, oh my god, why haven't you?
Oh my god, it's so boring. Oh my
what?
god.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna
so
get
bored in my
we're
life.
gonna get into this now. Why is it so boring? Why?
Nothing happens. They're just like, where's the map for literally 2 hours? It doesn't show anything. Nothing happens.
Listen,
If
I'm also
I
about
wanted
to-
to watch a movie where they tie some sticks together, I would just kill myself because I don't want to.
I was about to give a recap But saying where's the map for 2 hours is a pretty good recap.
That's literally it. That's literally it. I kept waiting and waiting and waiting. I stayed up till like 2 a.m. for this movie, and I've never regretted something so
The
much in my
difference,
life.
though, between Shannon and I mean, I'm not arguing that that is the movie, because that is the movie. The difference is that I don't mind where she does, because I appreciate a good atmospheric horror, okay? And it doesn't all have to be... I know that, like, the law of filmmaking #1 is, like, show me, don't tell me. But it's just, like, the Blair Witch Project takes that and fucking flips it on his head and gives you the middle finger. And it's like, no, bitch, I'm going to tell you everything and not show you anything. Mainly for budgetary reasons, but also because art. So, fuck you, Shannon, okay? It's an art piece.
My butthole is an atmospheric horror.
Listen. Anyway, for those of you who haven't seen it, like, to recap, basically, these, like, 3 young people go out into the woods because they're trying to document the local fucking urban legend of the Blair Witch, quote unquote, the Blair Witch. And they go into this local forest in, like, Virginia or somewhere foresty, whatever. And then they all die because the witch haunts them and lures them in eventually.
Yeah,
That's the movie.
It doesn't show them die either. It shows nothing. It's so
right.
bad.
It's found footage. It's a found footage film for those of you who haven't seen it, and I think that explains a lot because found footage films usually are all low budget and all are also usually very focused on what you can't see and like leave it up to the imagination kind of filmmaking. And so this was literally the mother of that genre. So of course it's going to be the most of it, and it does have the most of that. It doesn't show the witch ever. It doesn't show much at all, really, of anything. But it's all
Y'all want to talk about a good horror movie? Let's
What?
talk about Midsummer, which takes place entirely in daylight. Like, that's terrifying. Like, how
That-
did they manage to make the entire thing horrifying in daylight? That is
a
incredible.
really good point. There's like night scenes, but they're, I think, transitional. I don't think anything spooky actually happens at night.
Yeah.
So yeah, great movie. Totally recommend that. Shannon and I are like agreeing on that. That's a great movie. It's not spooky. It's terrifying. Like there's a difference. Like to me, when I think Blair Witch Project, I think ooh, like spooky, dark forest, like Halloweeny, like ooh, that feeling. When I think Midsummer, I think like psychological trauma, scary. And so it's different. It's
You need something to happen.
not that it was traumatized
Anything.
by it, but Midsummer is like it's like the horror of it is more in the fact that it's so like it's just people doing things. Like there's nothing paranormal happening. It's just people being fucking horrible.
For those of you still listening, the episode ended 12 minutes ago. I'm sorry.
No. Listen, okay, 1, we're not even on an hour, and 2, I really did want to make this important Blair Witch caveat, but now we're talking about Midsummer. So I'm gonna go back to what I was talking about real quick. So anyway, that's a fucking movie. And today I found out that, bitch, guess what? So this sequel, the Blair Witch sequel, 2016 sequel, apparently it confirms a fan theory that had been floating around for 16 fucking years that the witch can control time and space within the forest. And that is why in the first movie, Heather and the 2 fuck buddies like get lost and are walking in circles all the time and don't understand. Like Heather says in the movie, her fucking favorite hobby was hiking, so there's no way the bitch didn't know how to read a compass, and they were still walking in circles all the time. So how was that possible? It's because the fucking witch could control space and time and shit, blah 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 blah. And so the moment these fuckers step foot into the forest, the witch actually like transported them back to like 1940 before
What?
the time right before the time that the Blair Witch's house was burned to the ground by locals. That happened in the in the 40s, because there had been like a killing in the name of the witch, and so the locals were like, burn down that fucking house that the witch allegedly used to live in. That like happens in the 40s in the lore of the movie. And in the like the house is just like burned down to the ground, whatever. But in the movie, when the 3 young people are in the forest, so in the documentary, like the house is still standing. Obviously, you see it, and that confirms that. Like that either says that the locals didn't know what the fuck they were talking about at the beginning, or that the witch like put them back in time. And no shit, that's why they never found their car. That's why the search and rescue team never fucking came, because they were like decades back in time. It's so crazy. I'm not gonna go into like how the new movie confirms this, but basically, trust me, it does. Just like read the plot or watch the movie, and that is wild. And I wish all witches were that fucking cool and sick, but I don't know. Anyway, that's the episode.
I think that that's really cool. I just hate that it was a fan theory that existed for so long, because that feels to me like they knew that and they just took it. Like, it wasn't an original thought and it wasn't what they intended. They were like, oh, the fans came up with something better than me, so we're going to use that.
I mean, it's possible. The one thing that contradicts that, though, is that in the first movie, the locals say that the house was burned down to the ground, and they said that at the beginning of the movie when the young people are doing like local interviews for their documentary before they go into the forest, and they go into the forest, and the shit happens, and then at the end they see the house.
That it was just they were hallucinating the house. That's another explanation, you know?
Yeah, but I feel like that's more far out than just the house really was there, and there's something spooky going on between what the locals are saying and the fact that they can actually see the house with their own eyes.
Andre, there's a demon in Scotland that drinks 9 buckets of milk a day. 9.
Whatever. Everyone, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my little rant on the Blair Witch. I just became really passionate about that earlier today, this morning. That was a lot for me to read, so I just needed to share that. And it was about a witch technically, so it fit into this episode. You're all welcome, or I'm sorry, either one. If you have any ideas for future episodes, please do DM us at Talk Scary on Twitter or Instagram, or at Scary Talk on Facebook. And remember that you can listen to us and download our episodes on all podcast listening platforms. Shannon, anything else?
Be safe tonight. Take a bath, put on a face mask. Self-care is important.
Yeah. Wow, that's not what I expected. But be wary of demons. Do not pull out your Ouija if you have one. And if you don't have one, good for you. Stay that way. The Mothman is real, and yeah, and self-care is good. Thank you for that, Shannon, and we will see you all next week.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Goodbye.